What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Bulls Report. I am Patrick Siepman, and I'm joined with my main man, Harrison Graham. We said if we hit 1,000 subs, I'll be bringing on Harry. And on today's show, Harry, we're going to be going through what a perfect Chicago Bulls offseason will look like.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Patrick. Obviously, a lot of you guys know me from Bears Now, but Seeps is in charge of our Bulls content here. I know you guys have been loving the videos so far. We thought we would kind of do a two-man show here. He'll go through his perfect Bulls offseason plan. I'll go through mine. We'll kind of alternate things up. So it should be a fun time. Before we get into all of that, though, help us out. Patrick's busting out videos almost every single day here on the Bulls Report. Let's get to 1,500 subscribers. You guys know how it works here at Chat Sports. The more subscribers we get, the more videos we are able to do. So share this channel with a friend. Share this video with a friend. Subscribe. Daily videos just about here on the Bulls Report. Patrick's going to lead our coverage here on the channel.
Yeah, so I thought it would be good to kind of set this up and kind of set the stage of what I think the Bulls need to get done. First off, starting with the overall roster. So if you guys look on your screen right now, if they have 2 asterisks next to their names, that means they're a restricted free agent. And then if they have 1 asterisk next to their name, that just means they are a free agent. Obviously, the 2 restricted free agents, you see, it's Ayo and Patrick Williams. And then the free agents still remaining on the Bulls being Nikola Vucevic and then Patrick Beverley, who we brought in at the deadline. But overall, if I'm looking at this Bulls roster as a whole right now, obviously you still have the big 3 that hasn't really lived up to expectations yet in Chicago. And DeMar, Vooch, and LaVine, we thought we had a big 3 core there that could kind of take us over the hump, and they just haven't really lived up to expectations. But you got a bunch of solid names on the bench. You got guys like Coby White, Alex Caruso, Drummond still there, Javonte Green, then obviously Lonzo Ball, Derrick Jones Jr., and then Dalen Terry as well. But overall, this Bulls roster just didn't get it done this past season. I mean, they ended up 9th in the Eastern Conference. They ended up playing better ball post All-Star break, but I think they started the season. They were 26-33. They really dug themselves a hole. They ended up beating the Toronto Raptors in that first play-in game, but then they actually did end up losing to the Miami Heat in the second one, and it's funny looking back on that game because the Bulls, they had a 4-point lead with 3 minutes left. But first, before we get into perfect offseason, just kind of looking at how the Bulls just kind of ranked throughout the NBA. And when I was kind of going through this, I was a little shocked because I thought the Bulls were a better offensive team than they were this past season. I mean, they were 4th in field goal percentage, 16th in three-point percentage, but their overall points per game and just the volume scoring for the Bulls wasn't really up to par with where you want a championship team to be. And the big number that screams to me right now is that they're 20th in assists. You know, you have all these talented playmakers on the roster, and when you end up 20th in assists, I just don't really think that's the best recipe for success. If we're talking defensive side of the floor for the Bulls, they actually weren't bad this past season. I mean, funny enough, like, as much crap we give Nikola Vucevic for kind of being a poor defender he actually ended the season 2nd in defensive win shares. The Bulls were top 10 in points per game. Obviously, we have guards like Caruso and Patrick Beverley. They can kind of cause havoc for other teams. So defensively, the Bulls, again, they weren't too bad on the defensive side of the floor, but it was offensively. I just felt like it was too much ISO ball going on during the season. But before we get into it, guys, this will be the pinned comment on today's video. What is one move? Just one move the Bulls need to make this offseason? Get down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on that one. If I had to make one move, you guys can find out here in a second. But welcome back, Harrison Graham, as we get started on our perfect Bulls offseason.
Yeah, I think you set the stage well there, Patrick. And you look at the last couple of years of these Bulls teams, like kind of a tale of 2 seasons, whereas last season, great first half of the year, really 2/3 post-All-Star break, it all fell apart. This year, like you said, they actually played a little bit better after the All-Star break, but I think you come to the conclusion after these past 2 years is you don't have enough of a good nucleus to really be a major contender. I think this nucleus could be better than 9th in the East, but the ceiling's probably like a second-round team in the NBA playoffs, so I do think changes do need to happen. So to start my perfect plan for the Chicago Bulls, I'm going to go with trading DeMar DeRozan. Now, Seeps will attest. I'll just tell you guys, DeMar's probably my favorite Bulls player. I just love what he's about. He's a worker. I think he brought instant leadership and credibility to this team when he came over, helped a guy like Zach LaVine out in those areas as well. You look at what he was able to do this last year, he's still very good. Now, in the modern NBA, he's not a true superstar because he's not a great three-point shooter. He's not a great defender, but he can give you 25, 30 on any given night, and he's arguably the best mid-range scorer in the NBA. Here's the problem. He's 33 years old. He's got 1 year left on his contract for $28 million, which is a pretty tradable asset, in my opinion. I think you can trade him and get probably a first-round pick, maybe package him with something else. And the main reason I'm moving him is I just don't view him as a guy I would re-sign after this upcoming season. Like, sure, he could help you this year, but are you re-signing 34-year-old DeMar DeRozan? Like, I feel like, and it's going to be a theme with my perfect plan, you got to commit to more of a youth movement. I think trade DeRozan while he has some value going into the final year of his final year of his current contract. And Seeps, I know the first part of your plan kind of builds off of my idea as well.
Yeah, I mean, the one time you kind of mentioned it right there, you're saying, I want the Bulls to get younger. I want them to get more athletic. And the Portland Trailblazers, it has been reported that they could be potentially shopping that number 3 overall pick. So I hopped in the NBA trade machine. And listen, when I first did this trade, I don't think it's likely that the Blazers say yes. But you really never know. They may want to get that next kind of superstar star piece next to Damian Lillard. So I sent them Dalen Terry, our first-round pick out of last season. He didn't get a lot of minutes for the Bulls last year, but you're also giving them DeMar DeRozan, and then you are getting back Anthony Simons. I'm a big fan of his game, and then also Nasir Little, but then you're also getting that 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, just to chime in here, I don't know if it's quite enough. I do think DeMar would be an intriguing piece next to Lillard. Maybe a player you're going to talk about here in a little bit as well, Patrick Williams, maybe you include him in a sign-and-trade scenario. Like, that'd be a lot to give him up, but if you love someone with that number 3 overall pick in a draft of this caliber, that might be something you'd have to be willing to do there.
No, I don't hate it. And this kind of speaks to the point of why the Trailblazers could be looking to trade this pick. The Spurs, they're taking Victor. There's no doubt about that. But then the Charlotte Hornets, you know, it's either for that number 2 spot, it's either Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson. And with the Hornets already having LaMelo Ball in that backcourt, I think they're going to lean Brandon Miller at number 2, which could leave the Trailblazers sitting there at number 3 and saying, like, oh, we have Damian Lillard, we have Anthony Simons. Why would we take another guard? Might as well try the trade back, because I guarantee you will have teams calling up to get one of these 2 guys.
Yep. No doubt about it. I mean, it's clear Victor's going 1. I would say 70-ish% chance, 75. Miller goes 2. I just think based on their roster and LaMelo Ball, that makes sense. But these 2 prospects in a lot of drafts would go number 1 overall. So if one of them's sitting there at number 3 and you're the Chicago Bulls and you're saying, listen, we tried it with this big 3. We don't have a lot of future picks. Let's try and recoup some of those, or maybe move up in this draft to commit to that youth movement. Restarting your franchise with the Scoot Henderson is not a bad idea. He's a freak athlete, needs to work on the jump shot, but I wouldn't be too worried about those splits. His stroke is pretty smooth. You got to remember, playing for the G League Ignite, it's kind of like an advanced pickup game. I mean, it's not the most organized basketball in the world. So I think if you could get one of these guys and move up to number 3, Patrick, I would absolutely be interested in doing it.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think both of these guys could be centerpieces for your team moving on. I think both of these guys, you know, maybe the Hornets throw you a curveball and they end up taking Scoot Henderson, and they want to pair up Scoot and LaMelo Ball together. But whoever it may be, whether it's Scoot or Brandon Miller, if they fall to 3 and the Bulls do end up trading up there, you have your centerpiece. You have your player of the future. You have somebody that you can build a roster around. If you're able to keep a guy like Zach LaVine, which we'll get into here in a second, you could actually have a very strong nucleus around a young star. But we'll toss it your guys' way. Let me know if you're sitting there at 3, and let's just say for some reason both of them fall to you. Pick one of these 2 prospects. Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller. Give me an SH or give me a BM down below. Harry, who would you take?
I think I would gamble on Scoot. I think his upside could be a little bit higher just because he could be that, like, guy who has the ball in his hands and is running the offense. I know in today's NBA, if you have those elite wings, that's really helpful. I don't think you could really go wrong here. I think both these guys have all-star potential, so either way would be good. But I might gamble on the bigger upside in Scoot Henderson here.
Yeah, so moving on, number 2 on my list of a perfect offseason for the Bulls is to increase Patrick Williams' role. I have been a fan of him since they took him 4th out of Florida State. I understand a lot of Bulls fans, we all kind of had our eyebrows raised a little bit at this pick. But I've been a fan of Patrick Williams. And overall, yes, he has not kind of blown us away to the start of his NBA career. But again, look at these shooting splits when I'm looking at these numbers. And plus, you can also look at the top of your screen. He played all 82 games. That's something you love to see. But man, he shot 41.5% from three this year, Harry.
I was honestly a little surprised when you showed me his splits here, because he didn't really have a bigger role in the offense. And I think that's going to go back to kind of just my plan as well, is like, the youth guys you do have, give them more of a chance this upcoming season, as this year could be a transition year if you do blow some things up. And I think Williams is a guy that you would like to keep part of the future. That is part of this step as well. You got to re-sign him first. He is a restricted free agent,
yes.
So bringing him back, which I got to think the Bulls would very much want to do. But like you see it right here, Seeps, it was very much the big three, and then much less volume for the other guys. I would like to see some of these other young players get more opportunities in the 23-24 season.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Patrick Williams, I mean, only 8 shots a game, he was still able to put up 10 points per game, but let's just say he bumps that up to maybe 14 shots a game, kind of in that Nikola Vucevic level. I mean, who says he can't legitimately be a 16, 17 point per game guy in the NBA? And then plus we know he is a great defender. He can truly guard 1 through 4 at the modern day level. I think he's one of those guys. I think he's a winning basketball player, kind of that Swiss Army knife type of player on defense. I'm all in on Patrick Williams. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I absolutely think bringing him back might even be priority 1 based on the free agents the Bulls have. My step 2 of my plan, in addition to P. Wilkes, that goes without saying, I think you got to pick between Ayo Dosunmu and Coby White. I just think naturally that's going to make sense. I think they're both, good backup point guard options. I would go Dosunmu, though. White's had more of an opportunity. He's been here longer. Now, Ayo kind of just got stuck in the mud this year. He didn't really take that monster step, and his shooting splits actually went down. But we saw as a rookie that he can be a plus 3-point shooter, and he can be a guy who can run the second-team offense. I don't know if he has starting point guard potential, but if he evolves into like a high-level backup point guard, that's very valuable in today's NBA. You need ball handlers, guys who can shoot from the guard position. I think a big year 3 is coming up for him. Like, he's got to find that consistency this year. I think he lost some of that in year 2, which, listen, sometimes that happens, right? He was a second-round rookie, kind of caught lightning in a bottle, and, this year didn't go to the Bulls' plans or his plans necessarily, but he still has shown good enough signs for me that if I'm picking one, I'm going to go with Ayo, and I think he actually might even end up being a little bit cheaper as well. So bring him back into the fold, and again, with what I've been saying, give him more opportunities. Even if he's not a starter, let him play some more minutes this next year and see what he can do in an increased role.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I'm a huge fan of Ayo. He also has that dog in him, and obviously he is a Chicago kid. I'd love to bring him back. But number 3 for me, don't re-sign Vooch. I'll keep it simple there. I just think it's time to move on at that center position. And listen, man, if you look at Vooch's numbers, you would think he's a top 10, top 8-ish center in the league, no doubt, and he probably is, but I just don't really think he fits the Bulls' timeline and what they really want to do. I mean, these numbers, averaging just under 18 points a game. He's averaging a double-double on really solid splits, and we've seen him shoot this 3-ball very well in the past season at 35%. And again, you're looking at these numbers, you're like, oh, this is a perfect modern-day archetype big, but it comes down to defensively for Vooch, and I just don't really think his game translates to the NBA playoffs as much as I would like to. And overall, why I don't want to bring back Vooch, I just want the Bulls to get younger and more athletic, and Vooch is just the complete opposite of that. Vooch is getting up there in age, and I do think the Bulls just get younger, get more athletic, be able to switch a lot more on defense, because a lot of the Bulls' struggles this past year would be guards would bring out Vooch on that pick and roll, get the switch, and just get him on an island, and he would be exposed out there. He's not the quickest laterally, so that kind of speaks to my point of just, moving off a guy like Vooch and maybe getting another guy in the building where it's not, maybe doesn't put up the production that Vooch may put up, but he can at least get a little younger and just be a little more impactful defensively, frankly, for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, just to add to that before I get to my third point, Seeps, is, when they added Vooch, I actually really liked the move because it was an all-in move. You had win-now pieces. But when your best 3 players aren't good defensively, that's a problem. Like, it's more of just a fit problem. Like, I think Vooch could be a winning piece for certain teams. I just don't think the way the Bulls roster has been constructed, it works. Because outside of Patrick Williams, you really didn't have any wing / kind of bigger guys that could defend at an adequate level. And you have to have that next to Nikola Vucevic, and that just was not the case. So my third point is trade Alex Caruso if you can get a first-round pick, which I think you can.
Yeah.
A lot of people may not like it. He's still a young player. He could be part of the future because he has a very team-friendly deal, 3 years and just over $28 million on his contract. But I think considering that contract, you could get a first. So imagine this scenario, Seeps, where you trade DeMar to get a first-round pick. Maybe if it's not number 3, but maybe you get into the first round. You also trade Caruso for another first or maybe even a future first and a player or something like that.
Yeah.
You can really kind of fast-track a rebuild here. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, but if you can fetch a first-round pick for Caruso and then maybe even a piece as well, I think that's something you have to consider. His name was mentioned a lot at the NBA trade deadline this past year, so I would absolutely explore that if I was Chicago. And if you can fetch a first for, which I think you could with his defensive intangibles, I think that's something you have to consider if you're committing to rebuilding, which I think we both are in agreement that should be the plan for the Bulls here. So let us know, would you trade Caruso for a first-round pick? Type T for trade or P for pass. Patrick, go through the last part of your plan, and it's kind of just hoping and praying here.
Yeah, this is kind of a chalk answer for a perfect offseason plan, but man, it's just hope Lonzo Ball gets healthy. You obviously know he hasn't played since about halfway through that 2021-2022 season. But, man, during that season, that's when the Bulls, they were first in the Eastern Conference. And I was sitting there thinking, like, oh, wow, this big
Bulls
three.
are back.
The Bulls are back. Like, DeMar, LaVine, Vooch, Lonzo, Patrick Williams is developing. But then once he got hurt, man, it went downhill. And the number one thing that sticks out to me with what you guys are looking at on your screen right now was that three-point percentage. Lonzo, that was the number one thing he needed to work on coming into the NBA, and he worked his tail off. He completely changed his shooting form, and he got it up to 42.3%, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, he rebuilt his shot. I mean, he kind of had that, like, middle school form that we all have where we're not strong enough to shoot the ball from above our head, so he kind of would just – not full Sean Marion sling it up there, but a little kind of wind-up type of shot, which he was good at, but to not have shots get blocked, he obviously had to reconstruct his shot, which he did, and became a good shooter. I think there's some hope with this latest surgery that he could get back. Is he ever going to get back to what he was, especially defensively? That seems like a long shot. It's a tough situation for Lonzo, and look, it sounds selfish, but it's tough for the Bulls as well. The guy's carrying over $20 million per year, so if nothing else, you want him to get healthy, and maybe you could trade him down the road just to get out of that contract.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I wonder what his trade value would be if you're kind of speculating on the Lonzo
If he's 80% of himself, I mean, could you get a first still? Maybe, with the way he was playing.
6'6" guard. He's been able to shoot the three well. He can really defend 1 through 3 very well. But I will make this point. My kind of heart just kind of goes out for Lonzo because especially with how hard he's worked to kind of get where he's at. Like, I just feel bad for him because it was just over and over again, just another injury, just another surgery, and just, you continually going through rehab. You just kind of feel bad for just the person.
He was carving his own path, too. I mean, he got out of the shadow of that LeVar BS early in his career, got away from L.A., and really seemed to find a home early on in Chicago. And like you said, I mean, things were firing on all cylinders. And there's no doubt that when he got hurt and also Caruso around the same time got hurt, things really fell apart defensively for that team. But I think it goes without saying, Patrick, we wish the best for Lonzo and hope he's able to get back on the court at some time, which we don't know if that's going to happen. So hopefully that eventually does. My last one here, Seeps. Keep Zach LaVine. Maybe trade him mid-season? Let me explain here. So
this is my favorite point that I think you're about to make. So I absolutely love this.
It starts with point number 1 here, right? I think if you are committing to restarting a bit, you got to pick LaVine or DeMar to trade. I just think trading DeMar, A, is easier because of his contract. 1 year left, $28 million, compared to multiple years of over $40 million for LaVine. And B, LaVine's younger, and I think if he balls out, you could get more for him at a deadline type of deal. So here's what I'm thinking. You trade DeMar, you kind of commit to this youth movement. Just let LaVine cook early on next year. And if somehow you're in contention, these young guys are helping you win, that's awesome. If not, though, which is probably more likely if we're being honest, dump LaVine at the deadline. You could probably get a lot for him if he's out there averaging around 30 a game at an efficient clip, which we've seen him do in this league. Then you're really revamping your rebuild at that point. Sure, you're going to stink next year if that happens, but you have to accept that. Look at the Bears are a great example,
Yeah,
right?
seriously.
Like, if you don't want to be stuck in the middle, and that's where the Bulls are right now. The Bears were there for a while after that first year with Nagy. They're starting to come on the way back up. Blackhawks starting to come on the way back up. Like, it's better to fully rebuild than to halfway do it. So if you can't move them both in the offseason, keep LaVine, have him ball out early in the year, and then dump him at the deadline.
I mean, I love this because every single year in the NBA, there is a contender. They're sitting there at the trade deadline, and they need a score. And who says LaVine, after you move DeMar, like we have him moving off the Bulls, who says he doesn't go average 28 a game, and a contender's just like, you know what, give me a chance on him. We'll give you a couple first-round picks. And then LaVine also, big contract, but if it would be at next year's trade deadline, the team trading for him would also get 2 years after that.
If he's averaging 28+, 47% from the field, 40 from three, there will be suitors. Like,
100%.
I promise you that. So I like that idea. And again, if somehow you're contending, even better. Like, cool. Like, you don't have to rebuild. But in the scenario that's most likely, cool, you trade them at the deadline, a couple first, and really start to track that rebuild, Patrick.
Yeah. Harry, I think we should be the next general manager and president of basketball operations for the Chicago Bulls. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This was a ton of fun for Harry and I to do. The perfect Bulls offseason. Again, a little longer video for us. There's a lot to unpack with the Chicago Bulls team, so make sure you guys subscribe, stay in the loop, and hey, we'll see you guys soon.